when people argue, they're not thinking about the law. They're thinking about I'm gonna win.
I am very excited today to have time and speak with Katia Cafe-Fabrisse, the director of in here I am struggling again. Is it Indivisum?
Yes, individual.
Indivisum Legacies Adrift. Katia, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is such a beautiful and powerful film. It truly is. To watch your journey traveling and trying to reconnect with family and dealing with the issues of land ownership and all of this is such a powerful piece. Where did it come from?
Initially, I didn't plan on making this kind of movie at all. I was planning on making an environmental doc on the soil contamination issue in Guadeloupe. And as I was talking to people, when I asked them, I was asking them about Indivision, and I didn't know much about Indivision at the time. I could see the discomfort, the silences. I could see people walking away or not responding to me, and I thought, huh, um, as a filmmaker, whenever you're dealing with something that people don't want to talk about, that's what you have to dig. So that's what I did.
And you definitely do. Like we really learn a lot about you and your family and land ownership in Guadalupe. And I would love to know, there's this conversation of the relationship between family and the land. Can you talk a little bit about that and what makes it so complicated?
Well, I will say because of Guadeloupe is a French overseas department or a province, but it is also in the Caribbean. It's an island, and because of the history of the people that have shaped this island, where the indigenous people were wiped out and African people were enslaved and brought into the territory, people have a very visceral relationship with land. And so much so that in Guadeloupe, um, land is a seal of identity. You are somebody when you have land. So, because it's also an issue, that's why, you know, there's so many conflicts, I guess.
Well, it's interesting you touch on the idea of identity because of course, we're dealing with you and your family here. And one of the things I think is interesting is at one point in the film, you talk about being torn between three worlds. So what was it like for you to return home and how do you reconcile your own sense of identity as you're trying to reconnect with your family history?
It's very interesting a question because I was born in France. My heritage is Guadeloupe. That's where my culture, family is from, and I have been a Canadian citizen for over 10 years. And I will say that before I became Canadian, I was always torn between those two worlds. I was never French enough. I was never Guadeloupean enough. So, you learn how to be a chameleon and compose with what you have. And then once I became Canadian and I had this passport, and I thought, okay, so what do I do now? And it was very interesting to see that in France, I had to shut down the Guadeloupean in me. In Guadeloupe, I had to shut down the French in me. Whereas here in Canada, I was encouraged to embrace everything I had. And when it came to making films, I never knew how to position myself because I was like, well, talk about what I know. Yes, of course, but Guadeloupe has nothing to do with Canada. And the response I got was, well, you're Canadian, therefore it has everything to do with Canada. And I thought, oh, all right. I guess, because I feel like I'm allowed to embrace I I thought, okay, so now I'm gonna have to navigate between those three words that are me.
I have to say too, that is the most Canadian response I could have imagined too. The idea that yes, I actually I'm started laughing because I'm like that's very Canadian. It's like, well, yes, and of course, every part of you matters. And that is so that makes me smile because that would be a very traditionally Canadian way to embrace our culture and history, or one's culture and history.
I perhaps, but I have to admit that for me that was a good thing because I'd never had that permission before.
Mm.
So, you
That's
know.
interesting. That's very interesting. And I mean, now, and for you, I would love to ask you about how this journey helped bring healing in your heart and with your. Certainly, we see the beginnings of that with your own family and the challenge to you. I mean, we see you get emotional as you're told, that you could be the one, which is such a burden or a mantle to throw on somebody. My goodness. I,
I will say that uh, the things didn't necessarily go as planned, as it happens in filmmaking, especially documentaries. My goal initially was to go and see and confront my family directly, but with a camera. And the more I was filming, the more I was gathering information, the more I realized that it was not going to be possible. And I finished the film feeling a little sad because I felt like my journey stopped abruptly. However, mm, I I do hope that other families, will heal. Other families will start their healing journey. Other families will start talking at least. So if it's finished, if it didn't happen for us, I'm hopeful that it can happen for other people who watch the film.
uh, Absolutely. What can be done for these families, if anything? I mean, we see the struggle for notaries and not even having deeds for their land, but they've lived there for decades. They grew up there. They were the children's of families, and then they find out this isn't like they don't own this land in and of itself. What can be done for them, if anything?
That's an excellent question. I think because so there is the thing, there is the law, which I believe was not made to help. Initially, the idea was to keep families together, but actually, that didn't work that way. And there is culture. And the reason why there's been feuds and conflicts, and I will say, it's not even like the law is overlooked, that the law comes after. There's the quarrels and disputes are amongst people, family members. And I guess, you know when people argue, they're not thinking about the law. They're thinking about, I'm gonna win because I my ego is just, choking me, and right now I can't think straight. So what can be done for these people? The only thing that I will say is, like, bury the machete, bury it for good, and let's sit down and talk. Let's sit down and just that. That would be huge
Mm.
before we talk about the legal implications.
Yeah, I mean, we see how they talk about the invisible walls being built up between families, and I have friends who work in law, and they will tell you even here that there's no fighting like family fighting over a will. And this is not even the case there. You don't have those things. You don't have those. the
Things are
legalities.
beginning to change with younger generations, but yes, you know, inheritance, will, deed, all those things are not even in question because it's like this is my piece of land because somebody said that. We don't know who, we don't know how, there's no proof, and then somebody else says, but that's my land. And the problem with indivision is that because there was no deed, because there was no will. One person bought or was given or had a piece of land, and they had kids, and their children became the heir, and their children's children became the heir, and their children's children became the heir, which means that it's huge. People who don't know each other, who are not even from the same generations, own that piece of land equally.
Mm.
So how to get out of this situation is of course, it's through the inheritance law that needs to be changed. And things are moving a little bit, but I don't know what is being done for people to stop fighting.
Well, with that being said, one of the key questions of this film is legacy. What does legacy mean to you?
It's been, I asked myself that question every day when I was researching, when I was making the film. And ultimately, as I was trying to understand, trying to put words, because as a filmmaker, that's what I do. I like to dissect big concepts into chewable little ideas. And ultimately, I came up with the idea that legacy ultimately is about who you are,
Mm.
where you're from, and what you have. And it's about, I'll be more specific, it's about honoring who you are, honoring where you're from, and honoring what you have, because this is what you're going to pass on. You've inherited something, you've become somebody, you've become your person with all your life experiences, and you're going to pass on some of those values to your family, your next of kin. So that's what, to me, legacy is it's cliche to say legacy is what you want it to be, but it's how you stand on in your person on what and honor what you have. And if I may, I will add that again, that's something I never thought about until I became Canadian, because having to be reminded, of the land that I stand on and to pay tribute to the people that were there before me, I started thinking, oh, so that's for this land, but how about that land
Mm.
where my family's from? Do we honor it? Do we pay tribute to the people that came before us? And seeing all those conflicts and seeing that it looks like it didn't matter, but it does, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a piece of, well, your story and the story of so many others that, you know, the if healing can be brought and truth, then this is good. It's a beautiful thing. And honestly, I thoroughly find it a beautiful thing how you give yourself over to this film in so many ways. And we get to watch and share as you're not just digging deep for the sake of digging deep, but connecting the pieces of these threads and emotionally investing. I really appreciate that piece of it.
Thank you. It was very hard. It was very tough to put myself in front of the camera. But if I can share a quick story,
Sure.
um, as I was, doing interviews during my research trips, because people were very suspicious because of the nature, the taboo nature of the subject matter itself, to instill more trust, I would share my story, and then people would be a little less fearful of sharing their story. So we had conversations, and they would say, "Oh, this is what you need to do," and they were trying to help me resolve my situation when they were sharing their own. So after I gathered all this material and I was listening to these interviews, I'm like, well, I do most of the talking. So I guess I need to be in it.
I think it adds to it. It's honestly so much. I think that, oftentimes in a documentary, the filmmaker stays behind the camera,
Yes.
but this is your story. It isn't
Yeah.
just a story. So I think it's so powerful that you're involved in it as well in that way. Um, but honestly, Katia, thank you so much for the time. Indivisum Legacies Adrift is currently screening at the Hot Docs Film Festival. And I hope that you get a chance. I hope everybody gets a chance to check it out. Thank you so much for your time. I really
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
so much. Take
Thanks, guys.
care.
You too. Have a
Bye.
great day.